Welcome to the Be My Guest podcast, where we interview inspiring entrepreneurs who share their stories and their insights and much, much more. You made a great choice tuning in today to the Be My Guest podcast. Welcome and enjoy the show. Welcome, guys, to another episode of Be My Guest podcast. This is your host, Frankie, and I'm excited about this episode because we got another great guest who has a great story and great stuff she's been doing for a long time, and I'm excited about having her on. But before I do, let me remind you, if you want to be a guest on this podcast, you have an entrepreneur that has a great story, insights you want to share, go to our website, BeMyGuestPodcast.com. That's Be My Guest Podcast. Click on Get Interviewed, and we will talk to you about having you on our podcast today. Without further ado, let me bring on our guest today. Rayse, how you doing today? I loved having you on. Finally, we get to connect and have you on the show today. Thank you for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. By the way, did I pronounce your name right?
Rayse.
Rayse. Okay. I wanted to make sure I did that because we haven't actually talked in person over online many times, but never in person. So thank you again for coming. Why don't you take a moment, if you can, and maybe share who you are, what you do, and how you got started.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be on the Be My Guest podcast. Appreciate it. So a little bit about me. I actually started my entrepreneurship journey 7 years ago. It was like around this, like January 2018. But it was more like by accident, right? Unfortunately, I was in a situation financially. I had just went through my divorce from my first husband. My son was diagnosed with autism in 2017, and I filed bankruptcy in 2017. So like, wow. I always tell people, like, one of the worst, the year that you don't want to repeat again, that was, and obviously I was also diagnosed with depression, anxiety, because I was going through so much financially, just trying to make ends meet. I remember still to this day, sleeping on an air mattress in an empty house because I had sold all the furniture just to try to maintain the mortgage. So I kind of ran into this by accident because I was trying to get my finances in order. Obviously, there was no much money to budget. There was no way to eliminate debt because I was living paycheck to paycheck. But my credit score also was very low, 514 credit score. And I was trying to kind of transition into maybe I should get an apartment and not sell the house and maybe rent the house. And I had a rude awakening when they were trying to charge me like 3 months rent to move into an apartment. I'm like, well, I could just put that into my mortgage. And so I said to myself, there's got to be a way. So anyway, long story short, I found a stranger on social media that was advertising credit repair. I've never met him, never knew him. I just saw him pop up on my social media. He was from Tampa, Florida. I said, hey, I'd like to meet with you. And he introduced me to this concept of the credit repair and debt elimination and budgeting and the financial aspect, but also the opportunity to be able to help others. Obviously, at that time, I was like trying to help myself because I had to get myself out. But it wasn't until 3 months later that I saw big results. I was able to see my credit score go up 196 points. And I started to realize that as I was having the conversation of like, I found something, that people were more open to talk about it. I don't think that credit is a conversation that we talk about with our friends or family, especially if it's bad. I don't think I ever had a credit conversation with a friend or a family member. To be honest, it was probably just something I discussed with like a significant other, my husband at the time. And that's when I started to realize what a big, gap there was, and started to realize there was 73 million people that needed that. So anyway, I started just sharing my story. And a year later, I became a 6-figure earner in our company, have built a team of over 1,000 people just through my story. And it's just been a journey ever since. And I've gotten into other things. Recently, 3 years ago, got into the solar industry, and we completely have crushed that as well. So now we're like doing both at the same time, just seeing the synergy between the two industries. But just a journey of entrepreneurship. I never thought I would be doing this if I always worked a 9 to 5 job, banks. I've done it all, right? Banking, life insurance, all the kind of customer service and things that I could do. But I never thought that I would be where I am today in the entrepreneurship journey and now helping others. My biggest passion is helping others and women specifically to find another way,
Yeah.
uh, which there's a lot of opportunity to do that now in the
Yeah.
space that we're in with social media. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome, awesome, and it is a very powerful story. Let me ask you this: when you jumped into this, I guess I don't know if you did it full time right away or over time, but whenever you did do it full time or as you were starting to build it, what was some of the first challenges that you saw were what you faced?
Absolutely. As I was building this, I was building it part time. And of course, I didn't think I was going to leave my job. And like all the things that happened is not anything that I envisioned. However, it was something that was a goal. I
Right,
saw other people doing it, you know? So, like, my biggest wake up moment was like, wow, these people did it with this platform. Like, I can too. So that's like the biggest thing that woke me up is seeing other people do it. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I could do it too. But initially, I'm like, hey, if I could just make an extra $500 a month extra. Like, what can I
mm,
pay my car insurance, just helping a few people here and there. So that was me starting. But again, I started to see the vision. I started to make that in a week because then I
right,
was kind of growing and having the conversations and continuing to get a little bit more passionate about it. 6 months later, of course, a lot of sacrifices. My friends will be like, hey, let's go out. I'm like, no, girl, I'm not doing that no more.
yeah,
If you want to come over, we could talk about your credit.
yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
became that friend that no one wanted to call anymore because it wasn't like the fun party.
right,
I really got honed in. So I made a lot of sacrifices. My son was probably like 4 or 5 at the time. So I had my dad that moved in with me. So that was a big support that allowed me to kind of
right,
grow at that time. And just those 6 months, I just remember being up till 2 in the morning, learning,
mm,
watching a video on credit or reading a book, or like I just try to educate myself as much as I could because I knew a little bit, but I'm like, the more I know, the more I'll be able to answer,
yeah,
questions. So it was like a self motivation too that I feel that a lot of people lack that. Like, if you really want something, you have to make the sacrifices. So I'll be up to 2, 3 in the morning and then have to clock in at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I
yeah,
live in, a lot of people don't know this. I built my business in Springfield, Massachusetts. I live in Tampa now, but I initially built my business there because that's where I kind of grew up. So, dealing with the snow and all these other things, I'm still commuting to a job and
yeah,
I'm literally signing up clients while I'm at my job to do the credit repair. But 6 months later, I fired my boss. I made a big
mm,
statement about it. Like, I went live on Facebook,
wow,
and sometimes it comes up in the memories. I remember it was like May of 2018, and I went live on Facebook, and I go in and I give my boss the laptop, the phone, the company car, and I'm like, this is not for me anymore. Because I was
mm,
able to make double the income I was making at my job in 1 month. So I mean, I don't recommend everybody doing that because
yeah,
obviously there's ups and downs, but like that was me saying I'm going all in.
you're going
And
all
some
in.
of the challenges were like my mom was like, "Are you crazy?" My friends thought I was completely insane. But it also inspired other people.
Right, right,
So then I became the person that was like, "Oh, she could do it. I could do it."
yeah, yeah. So after you made that decision, as much as you were excited about it, how nervous were you about it as
Oh
well?
my God. I was like, I had one of my friends. It's funny because I had a company car. So I had one of my friends. I'm like, I'm gonna need you to drive me back because I had to drive the company
Yeah,
car. And as we're driving there, he's like, "Are you sure that you're gonna do this?" Like, I'm like, I'm sure. But like inside, I'm like, what am I doing? But the biggest thing for me was I already had a good resume.
mhm,
I've had every job you could think of. That's one thing about me. I always learn fast at the jobs. I always would rise to the top at any job that I was at. So I'm like, I already have a good resume. If that doesn't work out, I'll find another job. Right? That was
mhm,
just kind of
yeah,
my whole approach around that. So, but I was scared, but to this day, that decision paid off big time.
yeah.
I haven't clocked into a job since then.
How long did it take before you realized, Oh, that was a good decision.
Probably not till like a year later,
Oh,
honestly,
okay.
because I was work, it's a commission base, so it's like it
Right.
gets scary at times. Like some months were good, but I think that my first year in business, I was just so like I was out there. I remember doing presentations at IHOPs, Denny's, hookah lounge. It didn't matter. Like I was always talking about my business everywhere. Like that spark, that passion.
Right.
So I didn't focus too much. I mean, the money was coming in. I was building a team. I was more focused on just building it. And then the good thing about our platform, it really taught me how to budget, and it really taught me how to eliminate debt and not get into the situations where a lot of people find themselves now, right? With
Right.
a lot of debt. And then that's why they're not able to, there's nothing to budget.
Yeah.
So I was able to learn all of that from the platform. And then I still use the tools every single day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was about a year later that I was like, I started to, when we went to our company convention, I got a lot of awards, top producer of the year, rookie, like, and so it was so then that I was like, I made the right decision,
Yeah. That's
so,
awesome.
but it took a while.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
am I crazy for doing, like, my mom, I swear, my mom didn't talk to me for like months. She's like, "You're crazy. You need a job," that old school, you need a
Yeah.
job, things like that. So yeah, it was pretty interesting.
I mean, I'm with you. Like most of my family growing up, every solution to a financial situation was get a job or get another job.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
that's not the only answer sometimes, right? So I get you on
absolutely,
that. So
absolutely.
as you went into this journey of taking this leap, you know, did you start seeing people like kind of follow and you know get a little more deeper as far as being a part of your team and getting really committed? What was that like to kind of see people like say, hey, I'm going with you?
It was interesting because at the it start like I remember starting doing events at like a hookah lounge,
I
um,
gotcha.
because they offered the space for free, blah blah blah. So I was just trying to like get my way in. It's funny to look at those flyers now, by the way. 7 years, I'm like, what the heck was I doing? I was
Yeah.
just ignorance on fire. Um, but I start, two people would come in. Next thing you know, they were like, oh yeah, I like what she's doing. And then those two people would bring two people the next week. And it just started to grow. And I just kind of started to find my tribe, right? The
Yeah.
tribe of
I
like,
think I saw just real quick. I think I saw a post you made recently about like your first event only had like two people or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
Tell us about that.
literally, my first event had like two people. I don't even remember if anybody signed up from that one. But I know that one of the girls that's still with me to this day, she was at like the second or third one. And then on like my fourth or fifth one, I found another one of my top leaders who went all the way to vice president with me. And we've been riding for a long time. So it was those little seeds. Like to this day, I still have some of those same people that are still on the team, still believe in the vision. But it was interesting because like my friends that know me like for a long time, they're like, girl, that's you, that's always been you, because I've always been the friend to like try to help. And
Right.
I've always been the one to find a solution, like, okay, there's a problem, let's find a solution. So my friends actually weren't shocked. They were like, this is you. You know how people say this, I
Yeah.
can't do that, but you can, kind of thing. My
Yeah.
friends were like, girl, that's all you. And so I started to be like, oh, okay. Like I was always really social and always was, when I went out, I would always, my friends would make fun of me because I always made new friends in the bathroom, like I've
Hmm.
always been that kind of person. So it was interesting to see like, oh, they're following me for the vision they're seeing, and then seeing them have the results. It was different.
Yeah.
I had to get used. To me, I just created a culture of like we're family.
Right.
We would be at my house on the weekends. We would do barbecue. We became like a family, and I think that culture is what really exploded us. Like our kids, we would go to each other's birthdays, so it became kind of like this whole thing.
Hmm.
It was, yes, we're part of a vision and a mission, but I consider everybody on my team a family.
Right. What do you tell, maybe a team member that is trying to take some leaps like you did, but yet finding some things that really are, challenges? What do you recommend for them? How you got through some of those? I'm sure you mentioned some of the ups and downs. What do you mention to them or try to coach them with?
I think the biggest thing for me and learning in this journey is setting the expectation with people. Like, you could see me where I am now 7 years ago and want that tomorrow. But the reality is it's taken 7 years, right? So,
Mhm.
when they're going through those periods, it's like consistency. Like, my biggest thing, I have it like on my signature on my email, like, consistency is better than perfection. You don't have
Right.
to be perfect. You don't have to be as knowledgeable. You just have to show up every single day. And from what I've seen, mentoring and coaching, wow, like we've mentored and coached probably over 5 to 7,000 people. And
Wow.
what the common thing is when things hit the fan, for not using that word,
Right.
they just stop. It's like, no, I'm not posting today. I'm not talking to nobody today. And that can go on for one day, but the guilt of not doing it one day ends up being a week and ends up being a month. And next thing you know, everything that they built is gone.
Mhm.
And so I've kind of coached people to, like, you think I don't go through stuff? Like, I
Right.
know that it all looks good on Facebook, but like, I go through stuff. Nobody would ever know it unless you're in my bubble,
Yeah.
because my business can't, like, my business doesn't care what I'm going through.
Right. I like
My
that.
agents, the team, the people that signed up with me, the people that gave me money, all that, they really don't care what you're going
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
They just care about what you're providing. So that's the biggest thing. It's just consistency and showing up. So when I find that some of my people are in that rut, it's just like, look, I've been there. I've been where, like, I won't sign up anybody in a week, or like no one's responding and leaving me on red. But I've also been on the other side of that.
Mm.
I've
Yeah.
also been where, like, 3 months later, I can't catch up on
Right.
the messages and the people and everything going on. So it just really takes, especially in this season right now, Frankie, to be honest, like, this season right now is holidays, right? Nobody's thinking
Right.
about fixing their credit and their finances. In fact, next month they're gonna get in more debt.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I look at it. So the biggest thing is, like, how do we play that to our advantage? Like, let's try to catch people now before they go putting all these gifts on credit cards next month and then end up in a worse situation in 2025 and further away from their goals. So it's just kind of taking them from that, pain in the moment to, like, hey, this is where you could be 3 months from now.
Yeah. Two-part question for you. What uh what makes you good at, with the kind of business you're in, you're recruiting constantly, you're coaching constantly. What makes you in your mind good at that? And then two, where do you think that comes from?
Um, I think what makes me good at it is that I went through it.
Yeah.
So I think it's like the hero story, right? My business coach always tells me, Rayse, there's no one that does the hero story journey like you. So if somebody in my position is in a dark place, I've been there. This is what the steps I took to get out of it. If somebody on my team is going through something, like, I've had, girls on my team that are going through domestic violence and they don't tell nobody but me.
Mhm.
So then I'm carrying that. Or I have girls on my team that can't, are homeless in shelters, or, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these
Right.
are the kind of people that I'm dealing with. So it's like, okay, I've been there. I've been at the bottom. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of my biggest gifts, is being able to say, look, I came from the hood. If you know where I'm from, Springfield,
Right.
Massachusetts, that is the hood. And these are the steps that I did to get here. But in any situation, you talk about in a relationship situation, in a divorce situation, in bankruptcy, and being a mom, an autism mom. So I think you attract your tribe, and then you're like, this is what I did to turn that around.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's just the storytelling. Obviously, I think that's one of the biggest skill a leader has to have, is being able to tell that story.
Yeah. Where do you think you got that drive and passion to help people?
I think that it comes from a place of being young and wondering why are we going through this, and why are we in this position. So, and I didn't have this realization until probably a few years ago, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like when growing up, I saw my mom struggle, right? Always working, struggling, but my mom was a CNA. I saw my mom do exterminating. I saw my mom do every job that you could imagine. My mom did bus driving. And so I'm like, dang, mom works hard, yet we're still struggling. We still
Mm.
live on housing. I've been in shelters with my mom. I've been in the food pantries with my mom, food stamps. But what I realized recently is that I'm like, why? Why did we, like, was it that mom didn't have opportunity? Was it that she didn't have the mindset? Was it that she just didn't have financial literacy?
Mm.
So those are
Yeah.
the kind of things that I started to awaken in me. And I'm like, I think there was opportunities. I'm like, mom, you could have done Mary Kay. Like Mary Kay at your time was like, now
Yeah.
it's a little bit. I hope nobody watching this is Mary Kay, but back then I'm like, mom, you could have killed it, right? So I feel like Tupperware,
Right.
these little network marketing companies that really
Your
played a.
mom could have been driving the pink Cadillac, right?
I remember mom going to taking me to living room, you know, um, we call them PBRs, private business receptions now,
Right.
our business. But
Yeah.
looking back, I'm like, I remember being at those where they would be like, hey, we'll give you a free $50 Tupperware if you come, you could raffle
Yeah.
and in those rooms. So I do feel the opportunity was there. I feel closed minded. Again, always get a job, don't believe it, like
Right.
skeptical, right? That mindset a little bit. And then the other part is not having the financial literacy, right?
Mm.
Not knowing budgeting, debt elimination. Don't get those credit cards. Don't max them out and then not pay them back. Or, how do we budget or how do we get our credit right? I truly believe that if my mom had her credit right, we would have had a house.
Right. Right. Right.
So I think, but all of that was like a recent realization, like, why am I so passionate about this? And then I look back and I'm like, well, I always wonder why, our cars were always breaking down. Why were we taking a bus? And
Yeah.
so now seeing like how our kids are growing up, I'm like, okay, these kids are spoiled,
Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest driver.
How much do you, because you're working with a lot of people, you probably have a good consensus of what people deal with, but how much is it that people just don't believe they deserve it or can do it that, plays a factor in them not being
Both,
successful?
both, 100%.
Yeah.
Because when I started, I didn't think I could do it,
Mm.
if I'm being honest. So again,
What kept you going though after thinking that?
I was at the bottom.
Yeah.
I could, like, what I tell most of my girls is like, how can you look at your kids in the face every night and not say like, I didn't try, I didn't do enough.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a bigger driver. Like, obviously I had to learn how to be a mom, but I also had to learn how to be an autism mom. That's a
Mhm.
whole other element to that.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I needed to be there more than anything, So I was like, I need to do this because I need the time freedom. So initially, yeah, financially, that was like a financial aspect to it. But then I'm like, the time freedom is really what I started
Yeah.
to chase, because
Yeah.
then I started having a vision of what if I don't have to clock in anymore and I can pick up my son, because the commute that I was doing was like, I would wake up at like 6 a.m. to drop my son off so that I could go to work early, right? So I would have to pay for before care so that I could get to work on time, work all day to 5, 6, whatever. Then I had to pay for aftercare because I needed somebody to watch him between the 3 and 6, and then drive home an hour. So when you look at it, I wasn't with my son 12, 13 hours a day times 5 days a week.
Wow.
So as a mom, that hurts. And any mom that's watching this can relate to that. But as an autism mom, it's a little bit heightened because that kid needs you more. Like, there's things they go through
Yeah.
in tantrum. So I remember my kid having a tantrum in school and my boss telling me that I couldn't go. And I think that was like a big moment for me, because I'm like, how is another person dictating when I can spend time with my kid
Wow.
when he needs me?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So those little things like that, as I reflect back, I'm like, I no longer want someone telling me when I could be with my kids. So I think
Yeah.
those were like the little aha kind of things. But when you're in that mindset of like, I gotta clock in, and like, if that's all you know and you've never seen another side or had someone introduce you to what if, then
Yeah.
you're just stuck there. You
Mm.
don't know anything else.
What about all the different options out there to start businesses, or
Oh my
you can call them distractions? How do you keep how do you coach someone to stay focused and keep working at it, even if they're not seeing fast results?
God. There's two ways I feel about this question. First of all, there's so many ways to make money, right? And there's so many businesses, and network marketing has just exploded over the last couple of years, and it's going to get even higher because of social media. But my biggest thing was, I need to master one thing and become the master at one thing, because the way I look at it is, I don't do well with splitting my time.
Mm. Mhm.
So what I'm experiencing is, because we're in this era of like, hey, you can do this, you could do that, you could join this, you could do that, you could, right? What I'm experiencing now with my team members is something along those lines, where they want
Right.
to do this, but they want to be travel agents and they want to do life insurance. And I'm like, I love the ambition, but if you're not having success in one,
Right.
you're not going to have success in the others, because you haven't learned the fundamental skills of consistency. You
Yeah.
haven't learned the fundamental skills yet. So
Hmm.
for me, that was one of the biggest things when I started. Because think about it, we've been pitched everything in the book the last 7 years, me and my
Yeah.
husband. But with credit, that wasn't obviously, the passion is there again, because I reflected on like how I grew up and how this serves so many people. And I'm also Christian based, so I truly believe that the enemy will attack you through your finances. So I feel like I get attacked a lot, and my mind, like, because of that, because I'm helping
Mm.
people unlock one of the biggest things that the enemy wants, right? So that's a whole other conversation, but to me, that's always going to be part of what I do, no matter what, right?
Right.
But I needed to master that. I needed to become the guru at that. I needed to have success. I needed to be able to show success. And then I needed to create a system where it can work without me.
Right.
Right.
It's good.
But then think about, so when I got into solar 4 years later, I was already known for credit, like people still coming for me for credit, but I had a system for that. So
Right.
behind the scenes, I'm still, helping people with their finances and having those systems, and now creating those same systems in solar, and who knows what's next, right? But
Hmm.
I think that's one of the biggest things that I see now as I'm mentoring people, is them wanting to do too much at once. And like, how do you tell them that without seeming like, oh, I just want them to be on my team and focus on what I'm doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, just going back to that story of like, look, just master one, take this, learn the fundamental skills, how to talk to people, how to prospect, how to present. If you don't have any of that, you're just taking the same person to another company. That's it.
Right. 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 Let's shift over to your social media. I follow you on social media, and it seems like your social media is always on point. You're always sharing something of value or results or what's going on. What's kind of the strategy behind that, if you don't mind sharing?
Absolutely. A daily method of operation is something that I created not only for myself, but for my team. So
Mm.
again, the consistency aspect. So we have a DMO. We were doing a DMO call every day at noon with whoever wanted to hop on. And it was just simple things like morning post. What is a motivational post that you can use to inspire others, right? In the middle of the day, a testimony. At night, maybe your story, maybe somebody else's story, highlighting somebody else's story. So we had like a check thing
Mm.
to do every single day. Are you putting a note on your messenger? Um, Talk to 10 people a day, like the littlest
Yeah.
things that anybody could do this in like 15 minutes. I swear it does not take long to do a DMO, but let me tell you, people don't do it.
Yeah.
Like they want the success, but they will not do it. So that's the biggest. So I think that my goal with my team is to make the DMO be like to me a second nature. Like I don't need a checklist anymore. But it took
Right.
me time to get to that, you know. So for me,
Right.
it's like, okay, I'm gonna do my post, this, that. I gotta make sure I'm starting conversation. I gotta make sure I'm engaging. I gotta make sure that I'm inviting someone to a Zoom call. So like all of those things are things that I just naturally do. And a lot of people think that I have people managing my social media, and I can have someone manage it, but I don't want to take my genuineness out of it.
Right.
So it's
Right.
hard for me to have that be like everything else is automated. Like if you want my services, boom, 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 whatever. But like I think that my social media, it requires me and it requires my genuine approach to it. So that's my personal opinion. So it does require that time, but it doesn't take that much time to do a DMO. So I think to going back to consistency, making
Right.
sure that you're showing up every day. And then what does that do over a period of 30 days, 90?
Yeah.
Like you just continue 30 days, 60 days, 90 days to do these 5 actions a day. Where would you be 3 months from
Yeah.
now?
And how much would you contribute, your social media approach to building your business? Would you put a percentage on it, like half or
A
more or
hundred.
less? Okay.
A
Gotcha.
hundred, a hundred. Like obviously without the in person, but the in person comes from people that we get online.
Right. Right. That's
So
amazing.
the crazy thing is that I've made over 7 figures online. I've never bought leads. I've never bought ads. I've never ran ads. I don't even know how to be honest. Never bought leads. Everything has been organic. My whole team is organic. Everything is just social media. So like there's so much opportunity in it. Like
Mhm.
I look at it like if people are not making money right now,
Right.
it's just because you don't want to. There's so
Yeah.
many different ways.
Yeah. And how much time are you dedicating every day towards that social media strategy?
I would say an hour tops.
Nice. Nice.
I would say,
Amazing.
just breaking that out into like starting 10 conferences, birthdays, this, that, just keeping the engagement going. But if you really sat down to do a DMO where you're like consistently doing your posts, your note, reaching out to 10 people, inviting 10 people to an event on Zoom tonight, those little things, they don't take more than 5 minutes
Yeah.
each
Yeah.
action. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
but then here's the thing is getting off the platform and doing activities that are income producing. What people do is they get stuck and they'll go watch reels, right? They'll get caught up in the social watching other people commenting things that don't make money. So I try to really train the team like do your DMO, but
Mhm.
hop out and put another time in your schedule to respond to all the messages from the conversations that you created.
Right. Right. So you guys, you have obviously tasted success doing this for 7 years, hitting some of the income goals you've hit. Helping as many people as you've helped. How do you keep yourself going? Where a lot of people once they hit a certain thing, they kind of plateau. How do you keep your how do you get that motor keep going?
It's hard. Let me tell you, like, if I'm being 100% honest, I've probably hit that plateau 3, 4 times in my career.
Mhm.
And honestly, I have been going through it recently because we went through the transition of solar to then transition back into credit and then now transition to trying to do both, which I already
Mhm.
told you I don't do well with that
Right.
split.
Yeah.
Even though I've mastered both, so that's what I'm saying. Even though I've mastered both, it's still to me in my mind, it's like, how do I split? Like I just operate that way. Like I like to give something 100%, but it's hard to get. If I was to give advice just from like my standpoint, is just taking action.
Yeah.
So I'll sit down and be like, man, I feel stuck. I feel plateau. I feel like, should I be doing like there's so many things that go on in somebody's mind, should I be doing this? Maybe this is not for me anymore. Maybe I should try something new. I'm not as great as I used to be because you reach a level of success and then it goes down a little bit, or you don't have the influence that I've been through all of that. Like you want to talk about more, I've been with people that betrayed me, backstab me, go to another company, take my whole downline with them. Like I
Mm.
have been through it all.
Wow.
The only thing that keeps me going is my faith. I'm like, God continues to tell me remind me, I should say, that there is a purpose in what I'm doing.
Right.
and just having faith on his timing and when that's going to come. That's one. And two is just taking the little steps. So recently I read a book, and one of the things that I took away from the book is like, every day, just do the next best thing. So I may not be a 7-figure earner a month right now, but what is the next best thing that I could do? What's the action that I could take? So every time I dig into what am I good at? Okay, I'm good at training. All right, what am I good at? Well, I can call somebody on my team out of the blue and inspire them into action. Those are the things that I'm good at. So it's just focusing on what you're good at and just taking little steps. And you know what I find is that when I do that and I go out and try to inspire somebody or do a training, I motivate myself.
Right.
I'm like, I need it. Like, I feel, it like I needed the training, even though I know the information, but I needed it because of the outcome. So
yeah.
But then we don't do those things because our mind is so stuck. So we're like, no, if we do a training, nobody cares, right? So I've been through that like so many times, and even recently been feeling that way, if I'm being completely honest. But to me, it's like, look, I'm still gonna do podcasts. I'm still gonna show up. I did a live event. I'm still doing the little actions, and it's only a matter of time where everything turns around.
Yeah. Well, man, I think we're gonna have you back because the story continues, and I think you got so much more to achieve and that kind of thing. How can people reach out to you? What's the best way for them to, if they're interested in talking to you, working with you, and anything like that? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my biggest platform is Facebook. You'll find me right with this Rayse Santiago. That's my handle, Rayse Santiago Cosme. Also on Instagram is CEO Rayse Santiago Cosme. To reach me, I basically have a phone number, 813-803-6138. You can text that number. It'll come right to me, and we can talk, whether it's business, credit, finance, or anything like that. But yeah, that's pretty much how you can reach me. I appreciate you having me. Again,
what was the number again? I'm going to put it as a banner here.
813-803-6138.
6138. Let me flash that across the bottom so everybody can have that.
Cool.
Make sure if you want to get a hold of her, give her a call, text or call. I'm telling you, she's got a passion to help people. I've seen it myself, even through the social media, etc. And by the way, you got a great team now with your husband now, and you guys have been doing some great things. So look forward to it. So
get him on the podcast.
Yeah, we got to have him on as well. Look forward to having you back so we can talk more. Maybe we can do a workshop next time and help some more people, right?
So I would love to. Thank you so much.
All right. Just 1 second here.
Okay.
You've been watching Be My Guest podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to be a guest on our podcast, go to BeMyGuestPodcast.com. That's BeMyGuestPodcast.com.